Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. Today I've got a Holden chapter. It's chapter 7 of Leviathan Wakes. It's a bit of a shorter chapter, I would say, and a bit slower, a bit more sad, but you get a good amount of understanding of Holden in particular, as well as his gang, his boys. I want to apologise at the start in case I sound a bit weird. I've had COVID in between the last episode and this one, which has left me feeling wank. But it is what it is. I've got tinnitus from it as well, which is quite fun. So I can hear loads of ringing. You can't hear that. I can. It's really annoying. And it means I sometimes speak weirdly, I think, because I'm adjusting how I sound. But that's enough about that, you know. You're here for spaceships. I'm here to talk about spaceships and people in space talking about spaceships. So we'll get straight to that. So, Holden and the gang, last we saw them, the Canterbury had just been blown up, and in the previous episode, kind of discussed the consequences of that, the immediate ones on Ceres with Miller and the Riot gang. So now we're back with Holden, and they're in spaceship, and we learn a bit about Holden, and we learn he loves his coffee, and he could drink coffee at half a G, so at half gravity. He's got to sit right under his nose and let the aroma drift up, sip it slowly, not to burn his tongue, which, you know, I think he could do because he's not 4 years old. And it's harder apparently than 4G, but he enjoys it. And it works. And the rest of the team are all sat there because he was just trying to think about coffee rather than the Canterbury. So Amos has his big handgun on the table and was staring at it with frightening concentration. Can't think of many things I've ever stared at with frightening concentration. Yeah, I'd like to someone describe me as that, though. But anyway, then the rest of the team is standing sat there. Shed's asleep. Naomi's looking at ops and a few things like that. And Holden is just trying to think of his coffee, so he doesn't have to think of Ade, who died on the spaceship, and that last gasp of fear we read about last chapter. Obviously, they were all coming down off the juice as well, because they've been wired up to their titties to try and get to the Canterbury in time. So Holden's muscles are vibrating like plucked strings, and there's imaginary light all over his peripheral vision. And Naomi goes, come on, we can't just fly in a big circle at half a G forever. Because remember, they haven't actually got an Epstein drive. That little island in the Caribbean with all those little kiddies. They haven't got one of those. They're flying tea kettle in this. And Holden's like, we're not waiting here forever. We're waiting until we hear back from P and K, so that's Per and Clean, who own the Canterbury, who we learned about a couple of chapters back. And they're waiting to hear back from the Saturn station they've contacted, being like, yo, it's all blown up, what do you want us to do? Because technically they're still on the job, and the night is P and K property. So then they're like, we're waiting to hear about the Saturn station. Should we start flying there? And says Amos. Alex laughs at him and goes, nah, it'll take ages to get there. It's like 3 months because they don't have the fuel to accelerate all the way there and brake all the way there. And right now they're in between the Belt and Jupiter. So Naomi's saying you may as well go on to Ceres because P and K officers there if they're going to do that. And then Holden's like, no, we're going to wait until we hear from them. And Holden finds it funny that you can hear, even with his eyes closed, you can tell it was Naomi laughing at him when he says that. And he says that he doesn't want to fly towards Ceres because that's Sunward, and that's where the torpedo ship went, which is the one that blew up the Canterbury and scanned them but didn't blow them up. He doesn't want to follow them anyway. He doesn't want to go out to Jupiter because it's a one-way trip, basically. Because once they go there, they won't have fuel to change their mind if they get halfway there and they realise it's a bad idea. So they're waiting to hear back from P&K, given they're in charge. And Holden goes, fuck it, I'm going to go get some sleep because he's dying. So it says he's popped a sedative tab, thin, bitter pills with an aftertaste like bread mould. I actually have no idea what bread mould tastes like. And it's also fun because he popped it this time, whereas when the previous chapter he chinned them and he tongued them. So we've got a new verb for his drugs. And he's basically there and he's like kind of hallucinating about all his previous sailors. So the captain puts an arm on him, calls him Jim. Becca laughs and curses like a sailor. Cameron bragged about his prowess on the ice. I think that was the bloke who like got his arm crushed and stuff. And then Ade gasps again. We're going to get some narrative that says like he's been on the ship for 5 years. That was his 9th trip because they do it 2 times a year to go get ice. And he appreciates the stability compared to the Navy. And it felt like a home. And he could hear the ship groaning around him. And Ade winking at him. And he's kind of hallucinating until the cramps kick in from the come down of the juice. This is the worst leg cramp in history. He hits his leg and he starts screaming. And he's got a rubber mouth guard in at this point, which I assume he put in preparing for this. So then he starts like he's biting through that, and he starts thinking of all this like anger in him about who would blow up a civilian ship. And he says like in the Navy, there's things he would have done that he disagreed with, and keeps him awake at night. But the thing that really describes Holden is this next part, where he says, but to lock onto a civilian ship with 50 people aboard and press the button that launched 6 nuclear weapons, you would have refused. If his commanding officer had insisted, he'd have declared an illegal order and demanded that the executive officer take control of the ship and arrest the captain. They'd have to shoot him to get him away from the weapons post. Which is the big Holden thing you kind of like really understand in this chapter, that he is just like he's too nice. He'd never do a bad thing, and anything like that would make him really just stay awake, and he just wouldn't do it at all, even if he'd be forced. He'd rather just be shot. And he starts thinking about the people that did that. He's going to find them, he's going to kill them, but before he kills them, he's going to make them explain why they did it, which is another Holden one, of just kind of this not understanding somebody else, and he has to have them explain it and understand it. Then more drugs hit him. He says he was hot and limp. His veins full of syrup, and then he smiles, thinking of Ade. Collapses. Then a few hours later, it's like 3 hours later, Naomi wakes him up, and he's like, "Yeah, we got a response." And they're expecting there to be like, "Oh, fly here, we'll send somebody to pick you up, etc., etc." And a lawyer opens the call, and they're like, "Fuck." And Holden's taking it in front of the crew, and this lawyer called Wallace Fitz, kind of, here's a response for help, and is saying it's ill-advised that you've claimed Mars did it, and MCRN is quite upset. So the MCRN Donager, which is a big-ass battleship, is going to go pick him up, and they're under orders from P&K to cooperate fully with the Martians, whatever they do. And they say, if you fail to follow these instructions from the company and from the government of Mars, your contract with P&K will be terminated, and you'll be considered illegal possession of our property, and we'll prosecute you to the full extent of the law. A pretty dick move. So basically, you can start seeing here that they are just still these big powers, these like little workers in the corner of the galaxy. No one gives a shit, and they're just pawns. And Holden's incredulous. He said he didn't say Mars did it, despite in the previous the broadcast we learned he's like, "Yo, look, our spaceship got blown up, and here's a Martian battery." And he's saying, I engaged in no speculation about those facts. I just presented the facts. And then he goes to the team, and Amos is like, "Yeah, no fucking way." They're in like the galley, which apparently has got like walls of bright scapes where mold has grown and then been removed with microwaves and steel wool. And Holden's like, "I didn't mean to get you guys in trouble, but Home Office says we got to do it, so we got to do it." Shed's on his side, which is one of the few lines he says. Turns out he has blonde hair. Didn't know that. The guy I showed you, like one of the first chapters, he had dark brown hair actually. And then Amos is like, "We can't go fucking with them. Well, one, they're Martians, a bit of ethnic banter. And then two, they're going to pull off our fucking toes," until Holden goes on the radio and says it wasn't them. They killed the captain, and now we're supposed to cooperate. How's that fair? Which is big Amos energy of wanting violence, and then but also it's just like they attack the captain. It's very simple rules of like, you don't mess with the captain, and you get that a lot, particularly in the later books when Holden becomes the captain of the ship and stuff, and Amos is like ride or die guard dog style. So Holden says we've got two options: we can go with them, throw themselves at their mercy, or try and run. You can make it to the belt and hide. And then Naomi, Amos, and Shed are like, "Fuck it, let's go to the belt. I don't want to get tortured." And Alex is like, "It won't work." He flew on a sister ship to the Donager, and she's got four engines each bigger than the whole of the night, designed for long periods at high G, with every sailor on board juiced to the gills. Can't run, sir, and even if we did, a sensor package could track a golf ball and hit it with a torpedo from half the system away. Amos is like, "I don't give a shit, let's make it hard for them to try and kill us." Until Naomi put one hand on his forearm. The big mechanic paused, shook his head, and sat down. Which is, again, it's the big guard dog energy of Amos, which is why you love him. Because even though he realises all that stuff, he knows how much he relies on the team. And there's some great passages in later books talking about how, like, all the thinking and the emotional stuff he can't do alone, and he has Naomi, and he basically outsources it. And when he's without them, he really struggles. So Jim's like, "Look, we'll do what they say, but we'll do it our own way." And he gets the comm set up with Naomi. And he does a big broadcast again, because that's what James Holden loves doing, big broadcasts to the universe. And he says, "Yo, look, we're getting taken on board by the Donager. I hope this cooperation means that we not be held prisoner or harmed." So he's like, "Please don't torture me." And he puts out a big post, basically. He starts posting. And then Alex is laughing at him, being about, "I like the way you've done that." And Holden's just like, "I just believe in transparency, that's all." And then he has a quick chat with Naomi where he says, "Naomi, if this goes badly, I need you to..." And she interrupts him and says, "Throw you to the wolves, blame everything on you and get the others back to safety." Holden's like, "Yeah, don't play the hero." And it says, "She let the words hang in the air until the last of the irony leached out of them. Hadn't crossed my mind, sir." Which is, oh, cold bitch. Or feisty. But it's also kind of what you see more in the later books and character shows, that is Naomi. She looks after her family. and she would not want to do the harsh things that Holden would like. She's more willing to do the things that Holden would not do, but only in terms of the morality of looking after her family and her people, which is kind of you see a bit of her Belter background, because that's a big thing. The Belters, where they have to look after their ship, don't mess with the life systems, but they are very nice to those they care about. And then the kind of move on a bit, and the Martians ring up and they're like, "Yo, don't fucking do that again, mate. Just follow my navigation." And they've got 13 days trapped in the little ship until they get picked up and have needles shoved in their fingernails. And as they're getting ready to start the burn to go catch up with the Donger, Alex notices 6 belt objects on an intercept course that are going to arrive in 11 days, compared to 13 for the Doninger. And we end on a classic cliffhanger of Holden saying, "What the hell do they want?" Which, yeah, is a nice little chapter. I think it's a pretty short one. You get a bit more insight into kind of the team dynamics and a lot about what motivates Holden and the standards he holds himself to, which are really important as you go through the books and you spend more and more time with him. You get more interaction with the team. I think it's particularly insightful seeing the interaction with Amos and Naomi's first interactions with Holden. And obviously, this, as I said before, there will be spoilers in this, but before they become kind of lovers and entwined, you start seeing how they'd interact as crewmates only, which is always very interesting. But yeah, short chapter. Cheers, everybody. Look after yourselves.